big change in the world, it comes in small steps. It comes one person at a time. It comes one conversation at a time. It comes one step at a time. So often we have these grand dreams and big goals, and that's great. I set huge goals for myself. But we think we want to disrupt an industry, or we want to transform our organization, or we want to save the planet, or we want to feed the hungry. And we think of these huge goals, and they're intimidating. And we actually don't make any progress forward because the goal is too intimidating. But instead, if we think one at a time, if we want to have one conversation today, if we want to make one phone call, if we want to feed one hungry child, if I asked you to reach out to someone, one person today, we could do that this afternoon. You could help one person today. And if you do that enough, one after the next, you'll start to look back on the line of people that you have impacted in your life. Little by little is how one travels far. Now, my Walk a Mile campaign is ongoing. And if you look me up online, if you Google me after this, you'll see that I've published 8 miles online. The first was in Tanzania, Elizabeth, who you met. Then I did one in Detroit, Guatemala, Serbia, Uganda, then with Panama, followed by India, Zakira, and lastly in Sri Lanka. And I have 18 more to go. A marathon is a very long way. But I'm not focused on that. I am focused on mile number 9. Who is the next woman I'm going to walk with? What's the next story I'm going to tell, one at a time? And when I look back on what I've done with my life, and the places I've been, and the people that I've met, I'm blown away because I just did it one at a time. So I want to play you a clip so you can see how far Walk a Mile has taken me. Now, if you want to watch the full episode of any of these, the full story is only 5 minutes long, so it's not like you're committing to a Netflix series. You can watch them all on YouTube. You can go to my website. If you feel inspired by any of the stories, you can donate. 100% of the money I raise goes directly to help the women. I don't take a cut. I don't get anything from it. I'm just trying to help them. And also, if you have suggestions, people always ask, how do I pick these women? How do I find these organizations? They're from actual suggestions and recommendations from people I meet. So if you know of a great organization, you know of a story I should tell, please email me. And when I give out my email address like this, mallory@travelmail.com, I always receive emails after I speak. And I love it so please email me. I love getting emails. But I always receive emails from people that say, Mallory, love what you do, always wanted to make an impact. When I retire, I'm going to do it. Or they say, I've got 2 kids at home right now, but when they go off to college, when I'm an empty nester and I've got some time on my hands, I'm going to volunteer. Or sometimes it's a young person and they say, I really want to donate, but my finances aren't in order and I'm still paying off my student loans. And once I get my life in order, then I'll help someone else. But that is not the point. The point is that little by little, one travels far. The point is that one person at a time. You can help one person right now. You don't need a lot of time. You don't need a lot of money. You don't even need to know what you want to do. You just have to pick a person and then get curious and then ask them. We can all do that starting right now. There's no need to wait. Anne Frank said, "How wonderful is it that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world." We are surrounded by need. You don't have to fly to Africa to find it. This photo is taken in Madagascar, and although it looks very exotic and very fun, you don't have to go that far to find need. It's all around us all the time. I guarantee there's someone in this room right now who's struggling with the death of a loved one. There's someone in this room right now that's struggling with mental illness. There's someone in this room who's really worried about their finances. You guys work with a vulnerable population of people. You know their needs. We have needs all around us. And we can help the people around us. We can start small, start in our own communities, our own organizations, and one by one grow. So often in life, we focus on the issues. We see the news and it says war and pandemic, global warming, and economic crisis, and political issues. We see everything that's wrong. In our own companies, we talk about turnover, we talk about the staffing crisis, we talk about problems, problems, problems. But it's really hard to take on a giant problem like that. It's overwhelming. You think, well, there's a war going on and I'm just one person, and what am I going to do? What's the difference that I'm going to be able to make? But when instead of focusing on the problem, you focus on the people. Instead of focusing on hunger in the world, you focus on one child that's hungry. All of a sudden, it's so much more approachable because you could probably reach out and help them. Instead of focusing on the staffing issues that are going on, maybe focus on the person who's supposed to be hiring people into your company, or that person that came in for the interview. Like, what is that one person looking for? When we break it down onto a people level, our humanity can guide us. So I want to share a story of what happened when the problem was so evident, it was in my face, but instead I chose to focus on the people. In mile number 7, I went to India, and I walked with a woman named Zakira. Now, Zakira is an acid attack survivor. She is a burn victim, as you can see from this photograph. So in India and in many countries around the world, acid is used as a form of violence. Acid is used as the weapon, and it's often a form of violence against women. So someone will throw acid onto a woman in order to burn her, to take away her outer appearance, and try to take away her beauty and her value and her power. And in Zakira's case, her attack was a form of domestic abuse. Her attacker was her own husband. Now, she had 2 children with her husband, and they were quite impoverished. They lived in Mumbai, and her husband was a tuk-tuk driver. And she decided that she wanted to start working to try to support her family and so they could provide a better life for their children. And so she started selling clothes door to door. And Zakira became quite successful at this. She had a network of other women, and she started to earn an income. And when she surpassed her husband's income, he was threatened by that. And in his very twisted mentality, thought he would put her in her place. So in the middle of the night, when she was sleeping in bed with her 2 children, he picked up his daughters, moved them to the side, and he poured boiling acid over his own wife. Now I'm going to show you a before and after photo of Zakira. She was 28 years old when her attack happened. And this is what she looked like before and after. She spent 6 months in the hospital, And in that process, she lost an eye and an ear. And I want to play a video so you can meet Zakira and you can hear about her experience from her own words. Zakira is an acid attack survivor. She had boiling acid thrown over her face while she was sleeping in the middle of the night. Her attacker was her own husband.
मेरे को दर्द जलन इतनी हो रही थी, इतनी तकलीफ हो रही थी कि मतलब ऐसा लग रहा था कि मैं कोई आग के अंदर बैठी हुई हूँ.
The acid burned away 45% of her skin. She was on the verge of death. Acid attacks seem like an unfathomable crime, and yet they happen every day in India. Zakira said that if her daughters think she's beautiful, it's the only thing that matters to her. We place so much importance on beauty. Their value isn't defined by their beauty, but by their strength. She deserves to reignite her power as the strong and beautiful woman that she is. So I met Zakira at a rehabilitation clinic, and she was there with other acid attack survivors. Meeting these women, at first, I have to admit, I was quite shocked. I remember showing up to the address for the rehabilitation clinic, and I knocked on the door, and it cracked open just a little bit. And I knew it was Zakira because I had seen photos of her. And I saw her eye and her face, and I was telling myself, don't react. Don't make a face, don't look shocked. Be normal, be cool. You know, I was trying not to respond. But after spending a couple days with these women, I started to see them as being strong and powerful and beautiful in their own way. Because I wasn't looking at the problem anymore. I wasn't seeing their scars. I was looking underneath, and I was seeing some of the strongest women I've ever met in my life. So I want to do an exercise with you right now. I want you to think of one person in your personal life that's struggling. Pick one person right now. Think of them in your head. It could be your child who's struggling, learning from home, or it could be your neighbor who lost their job, or your sister who's getting a divorce, or maybe it's elderly parents. But pick one person in your life that you know is having a hard time. And then I want you to get wildly curious about them. Try to ignore your past relationship with them, ignore what you think they should do to solve their own problem, and just become curious, ask questions, open your mind to them. And if you really do that, and you're really asking questions, and you're honestly listening, people will tell you what they need. They'll come right out and tell you how you can help them. So often when I talk to people about making an impact in the world, they say they want to do something, but they don't know what to do. They don't know how they can help. But you don't need to know what to do. All you need to do is become wildly curious about the person you're trying to help, and they'll tell you what to do. They'll tell you how to help them. And so when you do have these conversations with that person you picked out, and then they do reveal to you what they need, then you give. That's the simple part. Giving is the simple part. The hard part is being curious enough that you find what they need. So let's back it up a little bit. Let's do this exercise again, but instead now pick one person in your workplace you know is having a hard time. Who's the one that looks really rough when you sign on to your video calls? Who's the person who's overwhelmed right now? You all know a coworker that's struggling. Think of them in your mind. And the next time you talk to them, just be wildly curious. And they'll tell you what they need. They'll tell you how you can support them. And when they do, well, then you give.